Yeah, hello, I'm Brenda Presting, or slash New Fair Team. So we are the
We're the editors-in-chief of our newspaper, Team School. I'm Amber, and
I'm Eddie.
My name is Angela, and I'm just responsible for writing an article about the interview, so I'm just interviewing that. My name is Alyssa. I'm also only just reporting on this course, so I'm also a senior.
Right. So I think
wait for.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry.
Is this a one-year journalism class or a year?
So we report of the issue we have.
But it's a club, right? It's you do
Is
it.
it a club or a class?
It's a club.
Okay. And y'all do the yearbook too, or is that different?
It's a separate thing.
separate team. Yeah.
I can do it. Different from writing articles.
Yeah.
What's the name of the paper?
Typhoon. Yeah. The typhoon that mascot here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, the typhoon.
There are hurricane teams in the U.S.
That's true. Yeah.
Do you have to spoil this?
No, I'm just saying it's not
Not
weird.
uncommon to have like
Yeah.
You know,
and it's very appropriate
original,
for Taiwan. Right?
well, original we pick typhoon is because
Right.
usually the center of typhoon is very calm and quiet and peaceful, but the outside is powerful, it's very destructive. So that's the original idea. Pick,
Were you
know,
part of the process to create a name for the?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
no wonder.
I actually create the school. Yeah, I originally
The judges for today. So what was the most impressive part about what you saw today from our students?
Is that when you decide what?
This is for the judges, so you can just answer.
Okay, I guess. Sorry, I guess I can start. I think to me the most impressive part was kind of the level of detail that a lot of students most of the teams went into when thinking about kind of the business plan in general. Because I think for instance, like a lot of student entrepreneurship business plans that I've seen, in general, it's very theoretical, very high level, and a lot of times actually they were able to build out the actual product, right? So when you're able to actually get down to the execution side, I think that's when you have that proof of concept. Then you have kind of like the prototype or the MVP, so to speak, right? So people can actually look at it and say, what are things that need to be iterated on, what are things that need to be improved on, and what works right now. So I think that level of detail what really struck me as really impressive for high school students, especially.
For me, is the ability to conduct effective communication via oral presentation, the way they use their body language and the logic flows, and try to conceptualize the theme that they put behind their business concept. So they've done a great job of presenting their business concept to the whole school.
Just a number of things, but the energy of the event, the fact that the parents were here, and that the crowd was totally engaged. So as they were reacting to what the students were saying, to what the judges were saying, it made it just such a lot of fun to be a part of, but I think also very meaningful. And then I was also just impressed, and I think Lee Kai mentioned this also, but it goes in the general heading of level of detail. You had one student who traveled to New York and talked to people in the fashion industry. You had actual products, you had mock-ups. I talked to the boy who made the model of the store, and I don't think he was officially a member of the team.
No, he wasn't on the team.
He was helped out.
Yeah, but he had these graphic drawings on graph paper that he used, and he actually went to the level of detail of, he said, well, in New York, you're not going to be able to build something like this. So he went and found an existing location that they could actually lease, and then modeled what you could do to that. So those are some of the things that I was impressed with.
Actually, mine was kind of in the same realm, with just the variety of stuff. Most things that I see of this nature, you just get a bunch of apps, you know, tech apps, and it's because Taiwan is very techy. But this, you have retail outlets, you know, physical products, fashion things, like you said, the architectural layout, the color designs for the retail store, for a cookie shop. They thought about just such a variety of different problems in trying to come up with a solution. You know. So I really enjoyed just the variety of things.
What about for Austin and David? Like, what did you feel about our event? Because you guys were there for like a lot of the rehearsals. So, what did you feel about the actual thing today?
So proud. I mean, these are our kids now. We love them all. I guess we were ecstatic for the 2 teams that won and gutted for the 4 teams that didn't, because honestly for us, I think we know how much effort everyone put into it, and I hate those things where everybody wins, but I kind of wish they all could have won.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. It's been amazing personally to be able to work with the students at PAS. You know, I did an entrepreneurship class at Georgetown, and my team didn't do as good a job as these teams did at Georgetown. And we were the best team in that class. I'm attached to all of the teams, and you know, being able to see them start this from the beginning and build up their idea one step at a time has been just an incredible experience personally. Yeah, I'm impressed with the level of detail. You know, people are designing logos, they're coming in with physical products for the judges to sample. I've tried the cookie shots in the past and I like them. Yeah, just everything.
Well, just add on to that, was there something that you saw the students improve on most throughout these months of?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
Actually, if I can take that
Sure.
first. So one of the things that you have to do to be an entrepreneur is you have to think constructively about problem solving, right? So for a lot of activities that students do, you think about why something won't work, right? And Model UN, you come up with a resolution or something, and everybody talks about the flaws in it. A lot of the teams at the beginning are trained that way, right? And it's difficult for them to switch from thinking about how to tear an idea down to building something up. And one of the best experiences that I've had in the program has been when students came up to us after class on Friday night, right? Classes are supposed to last for 100 minutes. They usually go for 3 hours because the students are so engaged. When they come up to us after class on Friday night and ask us, you know, I realize that I'm thinking about things the wrong way, but I don't know how to become more constructive. What can we do to practice being more constructive? Everyone has become more constructive and a better constructive creative thinker. I think that in terms of entrepreneurship and life skills in general, for things that you need to succeed in the world, that's an extremely important skill. I don't know if you want to add anything.
That's exactly the answer. For me, that's been the biggest change. And I would call that just, they've all gained a level of maturity.
Yeah.
And they've all gained now, it's really interesting when the teams now are talking to each other. They're all using the same business language to each other. They're sitting there saying, well, what's the value proposition in that? What are our customer relationships? What are our delivery channels? They're all speaking the same, so they've picked up this tool set that they can now apply to any business that they're doing in the future, or if they're working for someone, for that entrepreneurial kind of thing. So, you know, clearly picked up a skill set they can take
So
forward.
complete change in thought process, huh?
It actually really has been.
Okay, so for the judges, like in what ways do you think like our program can be improved upon, and then how else can we expand it upon this program?
I guess the only other thing I would think of is maybe you need a third semester about finance, cash flow.
Yes, that's true.
Money, you know, and how to make it
The
real.
And they
budgeting
can
and all
skip the
those
MBA right away.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Sorry, you're gonna have fewer for that college path to mark down, but then you'll have the businesses you can list that your students started instead.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Those practical hard
Yeah.
skills. Yeah.
Two things I can think of, but it's more wish list than anything else. I thought it was excellent. But we were talking to one of the groups and we said, are you going to continue your idea? And I think at first it was maybe So, you know, and we took that as a no, but then we encouraged them to keep on working on it. And we said, and I think David and Austin are gonna like this, but I suggested that if they wanna do that, the first step is to ask David and Austin if we wanna continue our idea, what's the next step? But so maybe some sort of planning for afterwards, right? And then the other thing would be maybe just a checklist of when they're putting together, and I know Canvas is a checklist in itself, but the reason I thought about this is I asked one of the students afterwards about the cookie guys, and or the C-Chef guys, and I asked them, because there was an existing store in Indonesia, and they hadn't checked on the web to see if they had a website. And that should be like one of the first things. So like a little checklist.
Competitive analysis,
Yeah.
and why they're successful or not.
Yeah.
For me, I think maybe one thing the instructors can do is to try to help them to narrow or the concept to an extent where the feasibility is close. There's a feasibility in the real world. For example, among the 6 projects, some of them are clearly more implementable than the others, right? So, but for the students that come up with a grand idea, which is good, but then they won't be able to really go down to the level of details that's needed to analyze the business, right? So I think for them, they will learn less, especially if they have a chance to continue on the idea and bring in the business into the real world. For them, it's just completely not doable. So maybe there should be a guideline that don't let their ambition to go too far beyond what they can achieve at this point of time. They're gonna have like many decades of life as an adult in the real world. But as a like teenagers, I don't mind let the imagination fly, and they should just expand their contact with the various aspects in the world. So it's very good that you bring the students around the world and to see the persons that are in need, and to give them a chance to be in contact with the various group of people that's not in their daily life. So I think that part is something you can expand on. I wouldn't be really too keen on asking them to be at the skill level that's needed to actually come up with this thorough analysis or financial analysis on this concept, but just try to limit it to a scope where their current ability is able to accomplish. I think that's just my idea.
Well, to follow up on your question, your idea, so do you think that it's more important to solidify the idea or the theory before they actually execute, they actually go into detail of their plan, or do you think they should focus on the idea first instead of going straight deep into?
I think this goes back to the discussions we have some of the groups, competing groups, back there in the room. I really think it's not so much how thorough they are, or how good they are in their analytical skills, but it's more important for them to try out their ideas in the real world, and so they know what kind of difficulties they will be faced with, or the shortage they still have in their thinking process, because they are problems you can never figure out beforehand unless you try it. So I think there's no theory can make up for
I cannot agree more, because this winning team used to be, I think the least chance team back on Monday, because when they first presented, it was a lead, a loophole everywhere, and then we attack them, and they try to use their subjectivity to come from this and say why this is not working. I say because you cannot live in your own world and taking your own perspective. You have to step out of your corner and think like a bigger and how people see it. So that team was actually very, very like a low spirited, all the whole week because they were attacked. I think they were attacked a lot. On Monday because I was the first time audience, so I went there. Sherry went there. We just gave them a hard time. I say because if you cannot even convince us, how can you convince the judge? They are professional, and you cannot just stick to your idea. It definitely work because okay, other people need to know if it's working. Then they buy in your idea. It's not that you think that you can. Well, so implementable. It's something that I think our students should learn.
And
Yeah.
what you're also saying there is resilience is important.
Yeah, and
Because they have a
I
lot of
think
negative
today
feedback.
they are winning because they take all the criticism.
Yeah.
And they take us, our opinion and the suggestion into serious consideration and try to remodel their business plan. So I was even this morning, they were still like say go back and try to check your logic because that kind of thing. I think that I'm very proud of them because in the end I really think that they did a good job. Yeah.
I was there for the rehearsal and yeah, trust me, it was so different. Really different, yeah.
That's why I think
We actually kicked them out this morning
It was
and said, come back when you actually know your content.
yeah, I think that
Because they
maybe
really put their mind to it.
It scared them and it forced them to synthesize and rethink.
I personally will have a suggestion in the future, for this kind of classroom. I think that being supportive and encouraging is important for high school, kids. But when they get into entrepreneurship, this is real. So it's not like you're playing house. Then we need to give them the realistic expectation so they can realistically looking at their business model to see if it's working. So I let Austin and David try to support them for a long time, and then try to because keep giving them the criticism is not going to help them. That's what David and Austin try to do, build their confidence. If you don't believe yourself, and don't believe your business model, there's no way you can make it. But I think that in the end, I still think that we need to give them a kick because
So one thing I do with the other entrepreneurs sometimes that I get these presentations from, and maybe you could apply this in this situation. Would you convince your parents to take your college funds and invest it in this business?
A much better question for these guys, yeah. Yeah.
There's one proposal that actually like to use bank loans to fund their project. You just have to go back, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, when I know, I challenge them, I say,
The money will
why
have
you are a
come
startup, like no brand?
Friends and
Why
families
the
on
bank
first
want to
source.
give you a loan and it's not going to work? I say, because we have a good idea. I say, hey, the real world, it's not like that. If you don't have a credibility, then you don't get anything at all. Nobody was, how are you going to get your first money? So, but that's a cute part of the high school students. Is, they just they were okay. Most of the students here they are well supported, and then they don't really know those kind of thing, in the real world. So I think that this program is fantastic for them to see. It's always easy to say, than just make it done.
So besides like the possibility of implementing a business model, like to what extent do you guys feel like presentation skills such as like personal charisma like can attract like investors to actually support the business model?
We should start with
Sure. No, I mean, I think that's a huge part of it, right? And in general, I think I was pretty impressed also with the quality of those presentations, and they were able to I mean, perhaps it's because of the previous coaching and the rehearsals that they have, but they were really able to kind of really crisply kind of explain what their product was, what their value proposition was, and why people should be investing in them, right? I think obviously like at the end of the day, we're all going to be looking into the numbers, we're going to be looking at the product, we're looking at the feasibility, all that kind of detail. But at the same time, we're all human too, right? So for people, when they're able to actually present it in a really charismatic way and really convincing way, it's really kind of shapes your thinking and the direction that you start thinking things. So I think, for the most part, I think everyone was really well prepared in being able to kind of really crisply explain, their product and their idea.
To me, the first team stood out in that respect. They came out right off the bat.
Yeah.
Every person had a fixed thing to say.
Yep.
They handed off very professionally. They hit the timing mark
Yeah.
right on. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
The first one is
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree.
So another question back to Austin and David. What do you think the most significant challenge was for the students and for both of you as instructors?
Defer to you on that, Dave.
Herding cats.
I actually, we kind of answered it before. I think the most difficult thing for the students was in debating, in MUN, even in class and exams, everyone is taught to look for the negatives in things. And by far, the thing that they found most difficult was us sitting there going, yeah, great, you're smart, you found 3 issues. Here's another 20 problems. So what? Give us a solution. Because if you want to do it, it's all about finding solutions to problems. Every single business in the world is full of them. It's how you turn it into a positive that kind of makes or breaks whether you succeed in it. And that was, I think, by far the most difficult thing for students to actually learn, was that change of mindset, because their whole school career to date was you get 100% score by just saying, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And instead we were kind of going, yeah, sure, that's easy. Now how do you solve it? And that was the hardest. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
So what about the significant challenge for both of you as instructors?
Good. It's really good that we're thinking hard about it.
Yeah,
Because-
I mean, there have been challenges, like, for the last week, we've been on Skype until midnight or 1 a.m. in some cases with the teams, because they're still asking questions, preparing for the competition today. That's not something that they would usually do with teacher or a different, like with Model UN, they're not going to be doing that. So David especially is coming from a background with 20 plus years of consulting experience for the biggest law and accounting firms in the world. Right, I've worked with a number of clients and across different industries as well. I don't have the 20 plus years of experience, but for both of us kind of having been entrepreneurs ourselves, to work with the students and help them like through the process of becoming positive, right, and nailing down all of the details has been a great challenge. It's been fantastic for both of us.
Yeah, I honestly can't think of any negative challenge.
Yeah, I
we faced.
just don't
You know,
think that there is.
honestly, from day one, they've impressed us. We've had classes run 4.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, you guys remember,
And that's-
were you there to see Kimball and Cayenne when they spoke? That was supposed to be a 1 hour event. Like 150 to 200 people, including parents, stayed for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon. That's insane, right? That's inspiring to us to see the reception that this has gotten in the community here. It's inspiring.
Right now, we're going to bring it back to the judges. So since all of you here are either entrepreneurs or investors, we just want to know how you guys started, what you guys do, and what inspired you guys to do it.
Easy question.
I guess I can start. Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of stumbled into my entrepreneurship career. So I was previously at McKinsey in Taipei. So I was there for a couple of years, and I was kind of debating whether or not to go to MBA. And I was because basically our company policy was that you need to get an MBA to advance in your career. So it's kind of like the beaten path. And I was preparing for my applications, I was getting ready, and a friend of mine came back from the US saying, hey, I had this opportunity for you. I feel like there's this really cool idea I saw in the US that I feel like I would like for you to participate in. And my previous experiences had all been in banking, professional services, and all that. So I felt like this is a good chance for me to actually, get my hands dirty a little bit, right, and actually, execute on some things and see if I can actually do things that I was writing in my presentations, right? Needless to say, I found that it was much harder to execute things when you're actually doing it rather than writing it.
Talk about it, yeah.
So that was great, and I really liked the challenges. So I think I did that for, we had our own company for about 3 years. It was a website, it was an online e-commerce website. So we ran that for about 3 years in Taiwan, and Uber came calling one day, kind of through a mutual friend, saying, hey, we're about to launch in Taiwan. We know you have some experiences in entrepreneurship in Taiwan. What are your thoughts about launching a U.S. company in Taiwan? So I talked to them a lot, and at first I thought, oh great, this other foreign company coming to Taiwan with no knowledge of the Taiwanese market, and they're just going to fail miserably, right? At that time, I think Groupon was expanding it in China. There's a lot of kind of negative press and negative energy around that. So I was kind of in that mindset. But as I spoke to more people within the organization, I really felt like they actually were really keen on actually learning how to adapt the business model for each of the local markets in Asia. And I felt like they were actually thinking about things in the right way. So we realized that there was kind of a fit there. And I felt like it was actually a really good opportunity for me to be kind of like in the middle of actually starting your own company, as opposed to working for a big company. Because Uber is kind of a startup with a little bit more of a scale. So at the same time, at one end, I don't need to think about running out of cash, right? As I was thinking about every day during my own startup. But on the other end, actually, I have my own small, very startup-ish team, in which we started with 3 people in Taiwan. We have six right now in Taiwan. So it was very much still like a startup environment and culture, where they give you a lot of autonomy to make your own decisions and actually understand the market and push it out. So I felt like it was a good balance there. So having had a great time.
Me? Long story short, because I figured that I couldn't be an entrepreneur. I tried once, and it didn't work out. So then I become an investor.
A lot more concise than my story.
Easier, actually. Well.
This is really hard for me to answer because it's happened over such a long period of time. I started out doing sell-side equities. So that's, when you hear about analysts giving stocks buy and sell calls and, setting targets and being wrong and, all that sort of stuff, that's what I did for 8 years. And that was as corporate and as blue-blood as you get. And then, well, basically, when I started working as an analyst, so the original question is what got you into your line of business? So I came to Taiwan in 1985 first, and as a language student, but I grew up in the 70s, so I was kind of anti-establishment, and so when my mom said, let me buy you a briefcase, I said, what for? And so it took me a while to find, really to figure out that if I wanted to get married and have kids, I had to figure out how to support myself somehow. So when I came to that realization, I started looking around, and I saw, this was in early 90s, I saw that there was a Yale student that just graduated, and you're going to think I'm really shallow for this answer, but that's okay, who had just graduated with a degree in Chinese and was being offered $300,000 to go work at a broker. Okay, I said, I can do that. But I had no financial background. I'd never even studied accounting. But I just figured because I had the language, someone would pay me. So I went to Jardine Flyman and said, do you need one? And they said, well, we could use a translator. So I became a translator, I became an editor. I took the CFA course, which is Chartered Financial Analyst, and I basically taught myself. Long story short, I also got married and had kids and was building up my career all at the same time. So after 8 years, I felt a little bit burned out. I quit. I went back home to Wisconsin because I was only going to come out here for 2 years, and I had been out here for 10. And so during that time, the start into entrepreneurism that I got was some friends were setting up a Greater China Deep Value Investing Fund. And so that's what really got me my first start with sort of startup businesses. Then after that, there was a team of people hired to go into Yuan Da to build up their foreign equities business, so I joined that. And then after I left UNDA, me and a friend started up a consulting industry. So it's just been a series of things along the way. And then as I've built up some savings, I've been looking around and saying, what am I going to put this in? And I discovered if I invest in listed stocks, Mr. Market, if you're a Warren Buffett fan, okay, there's a guy called Mr. Market, and he comes every day and he asks you, okay, here's the price, do you want to buy or sell? And when he comes and asks me, I'm very undisciplined. So I said, maybe listed equities aren't the thing for me. So I started investing in property, and I started investing in startup companies. And so that's kind of a long story, but that's how I got where I am.
Well, with me, I've always liked building things. You know, I started with Legos, and then I built my first car. And then, so when I got out in the business world, I could see building things in big companies wasn't a very easy thing to do. So then I started my own software company, and then that one led to another one, and another one, and a lot of those. And then, you know, I tried 1 year working for Philips just to see if big companies was a thing, and no, it didn't. It still wasn't a thing. Too slow. And I like wearing lots of hats, and you get to do that in startups, you know. So then I had, you know, some success over time, and so got some money, and then got tired of Silicon Valley, and figured out, okay, well, nobody's going to manage this money but me. So I had to start learning about, you know, formal investing type stuff. And because of my startup background, having been in the trenches many years, I, you know, was kind of drawn to private placements and things of that nature too.
So can you guys continue with the question? Can you guys talk about some obstacles you have faced during the process?
Number one obstacle, finding good partners. People that you can trust to spend a great deal of your life and worry with.
For me, I have too many ideas, and I'm undisciplined, so I want to chase them all at the same time. And then when it comes to putting together a business plan, I'm like really lazy. I like to go from the idea straight into execution, and that's not really the way to do it.
Okay, I will say health. You know, I did spend quite a number of years on entrepreneurial project, and I think you probably will not be able to think about the level of energy you will have to put into setting something up. So you really need to have the physical strength, and you know the health is very important to get you where you want to be. So I would think, you know, I kind of like burned out after that couple of years, and okay, just give me something that's less, you know, intensive. So yeah, it's like 7-11 around the clock, 365 days a year, no rest, and it's too much, you know.
Do they have to have my phone number to call me at 3 in the morning?
Yeah, and too much traveling. It's, you know, I think physical condition is one key element which you wouldn't think of as a key element to support you to get to the success you like to have. And but trust me, it's really very important. It's very fundamental. Number one thing, stay healthy.
Can you say that in your face?
I would say that I think the biggest difference that I found in transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship is actually kind of the direction and the motivation that you have, right? So I think in corporate you always know kind of your next project, what your deadline is. Your boss will tell you when things are due. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're actually running things yourself, no one's going to tell you what to do, right? You need to figure out what to do. And I think along the lines like prioritization, knowing where you should be spending your time on, and then being motivated enough to actually go out and actually execute that and carry that out. Because I mean, if you're actually your own boss, you know, then there's no one keeping you on the clock, right? You can go into work at 12 p.m. And work if you like. And if that makes you more productive, then that's fine, right? I do that plenty of times, right? But I might stay till like 2 a.m. So I think it's more about actually, you know, having that passion and motivation for your own project, because no one's going to be your boss telling you what to do and when to do it, right? But you know that actually if you're able to you know, meet certain deadlines and be able to push things forward, that's going to have a really big, meaningful impact on your business. And so I think for me that was really big transition. You know, and there'll be times where you really question yourself. You know, am I doing the right thing? Is the strategy the right move? And I think, you know, it's always good to have like kind of a healthy dose of skepticism for yourself, to question yourself. But at the same time, you have to have that conviction to push things forward. Or else if you're always second guessing or analyzing things, you're never going to get things done. Yeah.
Will those be your like best advices that you can give us, or are there other advices that you think you can give us throughout these years of experience that you have?
Can I ask a question? Because I think maybe you're too young, but those three.
I'm older than that, Lux.
No,
Sure.
those three should be parents.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm too young for that.
And then as an educator, okay, especially like running a school here in Taiwan, while we have a lot of parents well established, you know, but in the previous generation, like our generation. So I was usually confronted, you know, by the parents, like a academic success, like and versus something else, right? So
Life skills?
like skills. So whatever life skill, I call it in general life skill. Okay, and then like as a parent, you went through like entrepreneurial experience. How can you just give us parents a piece of advice? Like how would how would your kids to have an education? It's with more focus on the academic discipline, or let them just forget about those kind of stress. Especially they mentioned so many times the Asian parents. With that kind of mentality and expectation that they need to be successful, especially in college, and then continue blah blah blah. But for most of the high school students, they come to a point, you know, it's a dilemma for them. For those 16, you can see whenever it comes to the project, they're very passionate. Okay, they would just do it like overnight without sleep. While they have SAT, you know, coming up, they don't want to do it. So I was a person to be blamed when you come up with this, stuff. While all those seniors didn't, want to work on their essay, and the college deadline is over there. So I want to know, like, I want to have some kind of advice, through those successful entrepreneurial, also as a parent. So share your experience or your feeling.
I'm biased, okay, clearly. I think part of the problem I see in Taiwan is they're still kind of viewing the whole, the degree is going to
Yes.
get you where you want to
Yes.
go kind of thing.
Yes.
And parents have you've got to convey to them somehow that the world is not going to be the same
Yes.
at all as to where it was. There is no lifetime employment. If you can't do it on your own, everybody's going to have many careers over their lifetime, right? And entrepreneurship is just learning how to be your own boss. And it will be the most applicable skill you will have no matter what happens in the future. But what the future is not at all like what, most traditional education is teaching them.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to convey that to parents,
Yeah,
that
because
the
that's
world is
my
going to be
dilemma.
different.
Okay, I'm
you know?
a typical Chinese,
Yeah.
growing up here, getting my college degree here, and then go to the States. So when I come back, thinking about what kind of education I want to give it to my kids, I was in constant struggle because, as parent, it's much easier because as long as I let go all those, very troublesome tradition, I can just have a very free education with my kids. But when I work on this school, I think I share with David and Austin so many times, I need to strongly promote a lot of things, even with intimidating and threatening manner. So to make them realize the world is changing, and just academic success is not enough to guarantee their success in life. But I was in constant, kind of confrontation. But are brave enough to stand up for the kids, because I believe the next generation has a complete different, way of life and a complete different definition of success. So, because this is gonna be a special edition on our school for both parents and students, I want to see from those successful entrepreneur as a parent, like, how do you see that? And if you have kids, give you 100% of time, how much percent of time you wish them to dedicate to life skill and, versus, academic?
Actually, can I just quickly add on to what Derek was saying? Not that I'm a parent, but one, you were asking about challenges before. I'd say at the very beginning of the program, a number of parents expressed concern, or they were questioning whether or not their students could do this, because they're learning skills that are usually taught in an MBA program or a very specific MBA program or in business school. Business school is a lot about finance, right? The way that you really learn about being an entrepreneur is to be an entrepreneur. So they weren't sure if high school students could handle this level of content. They're also going through Harvard Business School case studies. That's what they're learning in class, right? Usually that's for MBA students. So for high school students to be able to do that was a question for some parents. I think that the work that the teams did today solidly demonstrates in front of the entire world that yes, solidly, they're very capable of learning at that advanced level. And that these skills are not only something that MBA students and business school students can learn, you can learn them young and do really impressive things with them. I would just add that and then give it back to the parents.
Well, one of the things about the digital age, if you go back to, say, the 50s, 60s, or 70s, if you want to set up a company, you're probably talking about bricks and mortar. And it's really hard for a kid to do that. But in this age, you can make an app, and there are kids making
Online
an app.
version.
Huh?
Online version of the bricks and mortar.
Yeah, sure. So, and I myself have looked around and seen, there's 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds setting up and selling companies. And so the concept that Austin's talking about is, I think the world is teaching us that you can't possibly be too young to learn these skills. The other thing is that we were all talking amongst ourselves, the judges, we didn't have these kind of opportunities in high school. And it's not just this kind of course, it's like the robotics programs. It's all the various opportunities. And I've been, over the past 6 years, on the hiring end. So I see the kids coming out of school. So the way I try and coach my kids is that in terms of the activities, and I think Lee Kai mentioned it earlier, there's got to be a passion. And so if you're just doing it to put it on your resume, if you're just doing it to get into school, then it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it because it interests you, then you're going to get the ball rolling. And so I encourage my kids, really a dual strategy. You've got to have a skill, right? So you want to come out of college, is it accounting? Is it actuarial studies? Is it statistics? Is it engineering? Try accounting. Go and study what you want with your major. Maybe you have a double major where you get your accounting degree or something. But then additionally, get involved in activities, because that's where you actually learn, sometimes more than in your classes. And then the other lesson that I don't really know how to teach my kids, but I use one story. When I was a kid, I don't know why, but one of the parables or fables that made a really strong impression on me was the story of the tortoise and the hare. And it may not be for a reason that you'd expect. It was because I'm sitting there and I'm watching the hare and he falls asleep in the middle. And I'm just like, he would never do that. Well, I'm the hare, because I went and I worked 8 years really hard, and then I kind of burned out, and then I took 2 years off. And I've had periods in my career where it's been like all work and no family, to the point where I was like, family is such a hassle. Because if you're working so much and you're so into your job and you really like it, there can be periods of time where you learn how people react to things, you learn to read their body language just by being around them. And if you're not around them, you're not really getting the right signals. And then so it's easy for that to happen. And so I've had both extremes where I had nothing to do, and I'm like, wow, this is great, but I have great family time, but like, there's no money coming in. You know, and then I've had the other extreme, and I've never, I think over the past 5 years I've learned how to balance it. But this is something, if you have a family, you're going to struggle with your whole life. So that's an issue for them as young kids who will become parents. And so I emphasize to them, just try and keep a nice, steady development in your career. So that's why the tortoise wins the race. And so I wasn't until I was like 45 years old I really understood what that story was all about.
Yeah, okay, I'm not a parent.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, don't worry.
I'm sorry.
Well, okay, but then I think I have a lot of observations from my friend or from the youngsters that the bank recruited. I think straight to your question, how do you persuade the parents or let them know that what's important or the value of this kind of program. I think you need to do the same thing as you've been teaching the students to do. Like you need to have your own very clear business model, and then you attract those who agree with it. You just have to let go those ones cannot be bought into it, because I find that Taiwanese parents are very difficult to change and to be convinced.
They refuse to change.
Exactly. So you see, for example, they have this particular idea how to mold their children, and they stick to it. I have friends that's filling up every single free moments of her daughter's free time in the weekends.
And
this is just too much, right? But then just very difficult to change a parent that's addicted to that way.
Journaling with Debbie Hollick, journaling that the main presenter.
I know
She has the manic mom. That's why she always tried to get out of her mom's, and the thinking, how to get away from her mom. Because her mom is more than a tiger mom. And then that's why Jenna Lin tried to see every possible, outlet for her to get her freedom. I think that's a part of her creativity too. The tiger mom just make her change the perspectives and try to find a innovative outlet for her spending or whatever.
They are also very. I just want to say that they are also very different group of parents that value different things in life.
Yeah.
So there's like 森林小学.
Yes.
Right. It's very different group of parents that buys into the value that the school stands for. So I think the same thing goes to the school.
Yeah, I think so many years I just bully our parents too. Because I believe our kids can do it, and I insist on giving them the opportunity to do something different. But
sorry. I think Lee Kai's probably
I want to ask Lee Kai the other way.
Gone through school
like the other way around.
Yeah, and I've been pretty lucky, I think, in the sense that my parents have been, generally quite liberal in the way that they've reacted to my different career choices. So I think when I went down the kind of more traditional path, they're happy about it. But at the same time, I think they always gave me a healthy level of questioning whether or not I was learning, right? So I think initially I started off my career at Citibank in New York, working for asset management, their asset management division. Which sounds like a pretty decent job on paper, but I was learning nothing basically. I think I learned, within the first 6 months, I understood, 80% of what my manager was doing, right? And not to say that I was like a brilliant analyst or anything. It was just not that exciting work, right? I think when I went back to when I came back home, I was in New York. I came back home to Taiwan. I spoke to my parents, and my dad was like, "Oh, how are things going at Citibank? And I was like, it's great. I think I learned a lot of, big company processes, but, I feel like I've hit a plateau. And he was like, well, then you should start exploring other options, despite the fact that, it was a pretty decent career track on paper. So I think at the end of the day, he was very results oriented person. So he was saying, as long as you feel like you're learning and you're able to bring, good results and you're able to, then it's fine, right? So like when I did my own startup, he said, well, this is a risky thing and you have to put your own money in. But I was still able to survive for 3 years, right? We're still able to keep running for 3 years, and that in itself is a result, right? And so when I was able to do that, then he said, okay, you've proven yourself that you were able to start a company and be able to do that. So I think in that same vein, for the school, when you're able to produce alumni that are able to go on and do really great things going forward, that's the result that you can show the parents, saying, hey, like the way we've been running our school, the kind of mentality that we've been infusing into our students, have produced great alumni that have done really great things, right? And that's the kind of ammunition, I guess, for lack of a better word, that you can use to talk to the parents about, right? Say,
Yeah,
hey,
don't just track the schools that they go to, or
Exactly.
track the businesses they start, and the
Exactly.
projects they are involved in.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
your marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the problem with our school is that we're way too young.
Right.
Yeah, we only established 2007, and even including this year, it's a seventh graduating class.
Right.
So,
Well, they're absolutely right though, but they're still doing things. And so TAS has a magazine called Windows, right? And it always talks about not necessarily what they're doing in their professional career, but what they're doing in college. Because these kids, I mean, they get into some
yeah,
really
we
interesting
invite our alumni, coming back to share their college experience with our parents and students all the time. But like the comedy thing, like life skill, that's a totally different, aspect of their original expectation. They never thought about that. They even, we were just talk about, we want to continue into the social and entrepreneurship because we believe that you need to be successful, so you have a power to help those that in need. That's why we really want our students to learn this kind of concept. And I was shocked that all the parents think, oh, don't waste the time. This is college is more important. They need to take care of the AP. They need to take care of SAT. So I was thinking that how am I going to continue promoting that? While because I think it's still a while for me to show the real product.
Yeah.
Okay, successful product to our parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I want to have this recorded so we can show it to all the parents,
Tell them
because.
it's gonna look very good on their resume sending to the college.
Okay, you know what, that's actually the tactic I'm
Absolutely.
using.
Exactly.
Because, I say that nowadays, everybody do immune, everybody do debating thing, everybody do community service, but nobody, do the entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But I think that this is the only way I can really persuade them into this kind of thing, involvement. But the reason why I want to have this and make it so formal is because I want to show them, first of all, high school students can make it. And second of all, they're not wasting their time. They learn a lot from the process.
So then we should let these guys keep running.
I was about to say.
Can I add a quick comment to that in terms of resumes? When I was at UNDOT, we're looking at the incoming resumes. Again, it's not about the activities and that you joined in them, and it's not about, oh, I have this resume and I did this and I did that. It's about, first of all, why do you want this job? And then how does your resume tell me that you've been preparing for this job and that you really want it and that it's important to you? So if the activities you're involved in are things that really interest you, well then it's going to build itself. And things like this, I think actually people do notice that you. And the really cool thing about programs like entrepreneurship or robotics, the kids, they build the momentum with the kids. And so it leads from one thing to another. So my son did robotics in high school. He's now in the solar car team and the F1 hybrid team in college.
Wow.
right? And the skills that they learn, they just, right? And so he's building something that's like, this is what I want to do with my life, and that's what you want to do with your
The
resume.
passion and,
Yeah.
you know, just go for their passion.
Right on, well,
This is a robotics expert too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started involved in robotics since elementary.
well, before we wrap things up, I just want to ask one last question for you, Sama. So, how do you feel about our student performance and how they went through today's competition?
To me, I don't think that winning or losing, you know, matters. I think, you know, when I start this idea with Austin and David, my purpose is to have them go through the process. So because I do believe that the value of this kind of program is not if their product can work, you know, since they're only high school. I think it's how they learn, you know, from their mistake and how they just learn new things, you know, and build new things, you know, from different perspectives. I basically very proud of them because nobody trusts that high school students can make it, but today we show everybody they can make it.
All right, well, thank you very much for your
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.